Welcome back to IGN Live at E3. I'm Damon Hatfield, and you just saw Sony's E3 press conference for 2017. There's a lot to go through, so once again, we have Lucy O'Brien, Marty Sleva, and Max Scoville. Who would like to begin?
Okay, that was one of the most fast-paced conferences. Sean Layton appeared twice.
Yeah. They didn't announce a new Porsche or anything. It was crazy.
Yeah, and it was just game after game after game. I feel like we should start with the last game.
Yeah.
Right?
You want to start with Spider-Man?
I want to start with Spider-Man.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best E3 demos I've seen in recent years.
I thought it was awesome. I think it delivered on all the promises we wanted in that short tease last year.
Yeah, it was exactly what I was hoping for. I love that, yeah, there are a bunch of QuickTime events, but they showed you the button, so you're like, yeah, that's what that is. Is it open world? Do we know that?
So the thing is, I think we all assumed that this was going to be an open world game. This seems more like an Uncharted, which I'm kind of fine with. It seems like it has these Uncharted set pieces, and in the middle are these Arkham Predator mode combat scenarios, which seem really cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I kept laughing because I kept saying, God, it's just so much like Arkham.
Yeah.
It's like so much like the Arkham games. But then you're right, there were sort of more moments of cinematic linearity than we've got used to with those games.
Yeah, and I felt like those cinematic moments to me, it showed heroism in a way we don't see in superhero games, which is weird. It wasn't like him beating a boss up in a QTE. It was him saving people from collateral damage.
It was cool. It honestly, like, at risk of being reductive, it looks a little bit like Arkham meets Uncharted meets Watch Dogs and how he's interacting with the environment.
Totally.
It's hard to tell exactly how much of that is like, oh, here's where you do that versus you have the, like, is it sandboxy within these confines, or is it, like, it seems very linear in parts, but it could also be this is a key story mission that we're
I mean, that's what I was saying to you guys earlier, that it reminds me of that Uncharted 4 demo from a couple of years back where they're chasing the truck. And it is very streamlined, and you're sort of held by your hand, but at the same time, it's like a blast to play.
It is a blast to play, and it almost tricks you into thinking you're in control of everything, whereas the game's doing most of the heavy lifting, but you're looking at this and you're like, oh, this is awesome.
Also, can we address the stinger really quickly that Miles Morales showed up there?
Yeah, that was awesome. So, like, is there going to be the same, like, mentor-mentee relationship that God of War has?
That is an incredibly cruel teaser to throw at the end of a conference if you're not going to do something with it.
I feel like a bunch of people are already, like, standing up and leaving, and they're like, oh, what was that?
Yeah, it's also really cool that we're getting Kingpin and Spider-Man going head-to-head because of how the tangled web of Spider-Man rights with Marvel and everything. Yeah. We have Daredevil fighting Kingpin on Netflix.
Exactly.
And I love comic books, and I couldn't recognize half the villains in there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who Blue Helicopter Man was, honestly, and I wasn't sure who the police officer he was talking to.
Yeah, I think he's actually called Blue Helicopter Man. He's kind of a throwback from the early disco.
Sure. But I thought it looked really cool, and the mobility in the game definitely reminded me of Sunset Overdrive. The wall running, the fact that he never touched the ground, sort of looking at different spots in the environment as nodes to interact with or jump to.
I think that was his main point of difference for me in terms of minute-to-minute comparisons with Arkham, is that you're using the environment a lot more.
Yeah. Also, like, the combat. I love Arkham. It is so literally heavy-handed. It sounds like a shotgun blast when Batman hits somebody in the face, and in this it felt much more kind of like pat pat pat. Like it was more kind of shadow boxy, jabby kind of stuff.
Like a dancer, like a ballerina.
Yeah,
and he would do some stuff where he like does a weird loop around a gantry and just grabs somebody and yanks them up, and all the web stuff is really cool.
Yeah, like whereas Arkham, it feels like you're like, oh, I feel like Batman's killing 2 out of 3 enemies. In this, every time, like we saw the one moment where he knocked a guy off a roof and then all of a sudden shot the web and brought it back because Spider-Man's he's a teenage kid.
That makes me wonder how much control do we have? Like, can you throw them? Is that a scripted moment?
Or will there be a narrative conceit like, oh no, they're fine. They got Fulton back to the building.
It was hard to hear from where we were, but does Wilson Fisk have the same voice as Kratos?
It sounded like
that.
It's gonna be very amusing.
Yeah, we didn't really get a taste for what the story was. It seemed like he was. The Kingpin was in prison, and it seemed like they almost had to work together.
Yeah,
like they're trying to
lawyer
go against
who shoots electricity, I guess.
But I really like the fact that it was this action scene punctuated by him having to save the city from a falling crane, because that's Spider-Man stories are all about that. It's all about him stopping a train from going off the tracks, or
cranes are often involved.
There's a lot of cranes.
Yeah.
The crane is sort of a Spider-Man villain. They're all named after different animals. It's a marsh bird.
My fears were put to rest when it comes to his character and his voice acting. I thought it was really solid.
Yeah.
He seems like a really playful yet low-key character.
Yeah, and by the addition of that stinger with Miles Morales, it makes me think this is not like adult Spider-Man, but a slightly more mature Spider-Man who's been doing this for a while. And so it'd be interesting if Miles Morales at some point dons the
that
cape,
could get
cowl,
really cool.
what you call it.
Also, he's got this kind of Oracle he's talking to who's a police officer named Watanabe, who I'm unfamiliar with, if she's even a character. I'm fascinated to know how much of this is just recent Spider-Man stuff I'm not paying attention to because I'm a bad comic book fan, and how much of it is stuff that they're making up on the go. That's new content entirely.
Again, we don't know a ton about the actual flow of the game. I am totally fine if there's an open world for side quests and then 6 or 7, sort of Uncharted-y sequences, maybe each one having a different villain. So maybe there's like the Kraven sequence or the Mysterio sequence.
That's worth pointing out. It seems a little bit odd that they would build something like this and not have it be open world.
Yeah.
But again, we're also operating under the assumption that this is an open world game because there have been open world Spider-Man games, and the kind of thing we're comparing this to is Arkham, which is an open world game.
Yeah, and you look at it, there's a mini map in the bottom left-hand corner, and you have to assume like that's for more than just window dressing.
I actually didn't see that because our lower third's covering it.
Yeah, that happens.
That would actually be incredibly screwed up if they just put a mini map there, but they're like, no, you can't go there. It's actually not in this mission.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my fingers crossed that it is an open world and as big as the Arkham games are open worlds. Like, it's just a really cool big sandbox to play around in.
Yeah, like Arkham City. And then obviously at the end of the trailer we get the 2018. It's called Marvel Spider-Man. Simple enough.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's cool. 2018. It doesn't have an early like some of the other games, so maybe this is around next E3. Maybe this is next fall.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I mean, honestly, Sony's been kind of just shaking things up in general with release dates. It used to be E3 was when you announce the games that are coming out this fall, you show them off, and that's changed more and more because people play games year-round, and you align your game release with other game releases and with movie releases and with whatever else is going on. So,
yeah. We actually have our comic book editor, Joshua Yell, standing by to provide his commentary on Marvel Spider-Man. Joshua, what do you think?
That was amazing and spectacular and all the other words that you would lead with a Spider-Man comic book.
Is that what you were hoping to see tonight?
That was everything and more. Yeah, really seeing Spider-Man doing everything we love to see Spider-Man do, being funny, being heroic, doing lots of weird stunts. Nothing against Batman. I love the Arkham games, but his combat and his approach to fighting enemies is so much different, like sticking up guys and webbing them up and doing crazy things with his spider sense, and that was just absolutely amazing. And it was really cool to see Spider-Man finally get a long overdue high-quality game just like this.
What was your take on the Miles Morales stinger at the end?
That sounds really awesome that they would include him in the game. I'm not sure how. Maybe he'll be a supporting character, but also he has different powers than Spider-Man. Most notably, he can do this venom shock. You use the word stinger. He can kind of like sting people and put them into a paralysis. So sort of incorporating sort of this like maybe electric attack into Spider-Man's attacks. So I think that would be a really cool thing to see Spider-Man do if you get to be Miles Morales, who's the red and black, half Hispanic Spider-Man who was introduced in the Ultimate Universe.
Very cool.
Did you happen to notice any Easter eggs in the footage we saw today?
Did you say you're asking about Easter eggs?
Yeah, I didn't know if you happened to notice anything special.
Well, it was really funny that there was that Norman Osborn for mayor sign that got smashed in half. So we all know him is, of course, the Green Goblin. Maybe he's not the Green Goblin yet in this universe. I don't know. Also, the villain, for those who are wondering, that's Mr. Negative, who in the game story is he puts up a front, and in the comic books, he puts up a front of being this really nice guy who helps out the community. They said in the dialogue that we heard a little bit snippet of that he's the guy who runs the local soup kitchen, but he sort of has a split personality kind of thing going on, and he's got dark, like, negative powers. We saw him use the sword and blast Spider-Man, so he can do a lot of cool things that we haven't really seen a lot of other Spider-Man villains do. Usually the villain is it's like Hydro Man and Electro, and you try to get them to cross paths so they short each other out. But no, this is definitely not that. It's new flavor for Spider-Man, and because I do think they are going for a new approach on Spider-Man and giving him the white suit, making this very unique to PS4, I think it's smart to start with a villain that a lot of people probably don't know.
Yeah, for sure. That is very enlightening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joshua.
Actually, genuinely, really enlightening.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thanks a lot,
Joshua.
Joshua. We
Mr.
really
Negative.
appreciate it. Mr. Negative.
I feel like Joshua may have been the only person in the IGN War Room who knew that was Mr. Negative and had a ton of Mr. Negative facts.
Yeah.
So thankfully he was here.
Joshua is also the opposite of Mr. Negative. He's totally Mr.
No,
Positive.
he is incredibly Mr. Positive.
So we got, we were hoping to see more Spider-Man. We got a huge look at Spider-Man, and it's coming 2018. So do you feel like satisfied, or do you feel disappointed you're not going to play it this year?
No, I love Insomniac as a developer. I've loved them since I was a kid, and I always say, let them, take as long as you need to make a game that lives up to the standard of what we just saw.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm a little bit disappointed, honestly.
Yeah?
I was thinking it was going to be a surprise thing that's like, it's coming out this fall, here's the release date. But I mean, obviously a game that takes longer to make is going to be better, unless it's Duke Nukem Forever or whatever. But no, it's sucks that we have to wait, but they showed us something to keep me satisfied until then. So.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that was a really lengthy demo, so I can wait now. If it was even just a smidge shorter, I would be a bit disappointed, but there was enough there to keep me sated until next year.
Cool. Well, God of War made a return to E3 with a huge new trailer. First impressions.
I thought it was interesting that last year we opened up the conference with extended 10, 12-minute gameplay without a single cut, and that this was it was a trailer with some gameplay jumping around the world, which I assume Midgar, we saw the Midgar serpent, they really delved into Norse mythology. All of this looked like in-engine gameplay to me, which seems super cool because the game looks just as gorgeous as it did last year.
Yeah, unlike the Spider-Man demo, I kind of wish that there were some button commands on screen. The fact that this is coming out sooner than Spider-Man, presumably, I wish that they showed us a little bit more about what this actually looks like when it's in motion, because there were a lot of things that were very cutscene-y, quick-time event-y. That said, this is the most excited I've ever been for a God of War game. It's not a series that's particularly grabbed me, but this had a wide range. It had the big badass action sequences. It had the monsters. It had the Nickelodeon slime or whatever, and then snowy footprints. But then also humor. He threw an axe at a guy's head, and the guy was being a smart aleck.
I was saying in our pre-show that I was expecting to see a little bit more God of War-y stuff in this, and we did. We saw Kratos doing some hacking and slashing, and I'm actually really pleased. The combat looks really cool. I play God of War games because of that, because of the combat. You know what I mean? I love that they've attached this emotional story as well, but for me, I was very happy to have seen this side of it.
Yeah, and we see here, God of War is, up there with Bayonetta and Devil May Cry as some of the best 3D character action games. And you see here the variety of attacks he's using in a single encounter between this axe, which has sort of replaced his chains, his shield that can turn into a bit of a gauntlet. He's using magic attacks. He's juggling enemies. He's, parrying, going from enemy to enemy. It showed a hack and slash nature to the combat, which was sort of absent from last year.
Yeah, and so the footage that being shown here is there's no HUD.
There's no HUD.
Trying to make it very clean, very cinematic.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was a conference thing. Yeah. Because a lot of the games didn't have a HUD. But they, when I interviewed them last year, they very much said they wanted this to be a very cinematic, in-world feel, which you're getting from a lot of these things between the relationship with him and his son, and then some of you assume Norse deities talking about his past. This is absolutely the Kratos from the original games.
I think it's really cool because it's almost like the amount of time that's passed since those games were really, really in their prime. It's we've all changed, we've all grown up, and I think the people working on this are kind of feeling that way too. And maybe it's you do things when you're younger you're sort of embarrassed about, and you look back on games from the PS2 era and they look rudimentary. They look considerably lower resolution than this, obviously, because this is cutting edge graphics, and it's kind of just beyond visuals though, tonally, games are constantly evolving, and it's really cool to see a franchise that is so principally about just rage and hacking and slashing take some new directions.
Yeah, I mean, even the camera angle is a lot lower. With the combat, even the camera angle is a lot less sort of cartoonish as it was in the
it's grounded. Hovering up way above Kratos.
It's grounded across all facets. This I loved because it was such a throwback to the old games, and then the kid is like, he wants to help us.
Yeah, because the first thing we ever saw from God of War was a battle scene with a three-headed Hydra.
Yeah, what did I say in the pre-show? There's going to be a giant eyeball and he's stabbing it or something, but he didn't stab it. He made friends with it.
Yeah, it's also interesting. I feel like this was a funny line, but it's also the fact that why is his son able to speak the weird gnarled language of the Midgar serpent?
We're still not sure what their relationship is. There was some dialogue in the beginning of the trailer where the son says, "You are ashamed of me because I'm different than you."
I feel like Kratos may have done the deed with someone Norse, and so I feel like he may be a demigod in terms of he's the son of a Greek god and of a Norse goddess.
Yeah.
and that equals
He's a
you
mudblood.
can talk to gigantic serpents.
Yeah, I feel like that makes sense.
That's a really cool way of doing it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Early 2018.
Early 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
January
also
2nd. Mark
not
your
coming
calendars.
this year. You were slightly off on your prediction there, Marty.
Yeah.
I think we have Justin Davis standing by in the newsroom for his take on God of War. Justin, what'd you think?
Dude, 2 years in a row that God of War has just had an incredible demo. They showed us a lot more of this game world now. What I was most excited about is that they showed us a lot more interactions with other characters and story and humor, as you were talking about earlier. I've always thought God of War was a little bit of a lonely game, and I'm really glad that they're much more willing to give us more, deeper looks at, more characters, more interactions with the son. I really feel like they took that criticism to heart, and that this is going to be a different feeling, different style God of War.
Yeah, so when they showed it last year, they showed some hints of some crafting or RPG elements, and the demo we saw today is a lot more focused, and they showed a lot more classic God of War style combat. So what kind of God of War game do you think this is?
Well, I mean, what I was most excited to see was that we see this mixture of combat mechanics sneaking its way into the cutscenes, into the story. You know, it's a big combat mechanic that you can throw your axe and have it come back to you, almost sort of Mjolnir style. But this time around, you saw that come into play and played for laughs in the cutscene as well. So it's good that, the world is sort of staying consistent and that you're not seeing this separation between, story and gameplay.
Yeah.
Now, Justin, as a father yourself, what do you think of the relationship between Kratos and his son and the conflict that seems to exist there?
No, well, no, I mean, he's maybe got a little bit different parenting style than I would have with my daughters. But we've seen before that Kratos is an angry dude, that rage meter that we saw last year. And he's a guy that's definitely trying to keep his temper under control. And, but he's also teaching his son lessons about, look, don't show your enemies any mercy. And we never really got, in previous God of War games, we never got inside Kratos' head very much. So I think him, talking to his son, teaching his son, is going to give us a lot more opportunity to sort of learn more. It's almost going to hold a mirror up to Kratos himself and become, hopefully more of a fleshed out character.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Justin.
Thanks.
So after what we saw today, has your hype for God of War been heightened, mitigated, or same?
I'm right where I was last year, which is, it was my game of the show last year. I didn't get a chance to play Zelda last year. But
Okay.
I played a ton of stuff. It was my game of the show last year, and honestly, it's right up there. I'm still so stoked for early 2018.
I'm pretty much entirely on board.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And that's weird for me, so,
Yeah, me too. I mean, I just wanted to see that combat in action, and that's what I got. So I'm very happy.
Cool. All right, we also got an extended look at Days Gone, which looks grim and then some.
Yeah, I was a bit underwhelmed last year. With the Days Gone showing,
Yeah.
we opened we had a story trailer early on, and then we closed the conference last year with a demo that I thought felt a little too long. Whereas what we saw this year showed a little bit of the open world, the varied environments, and it showed the way that you're interacting with. I'm going to call them zombies. Sean Layden called them zombies.
yeah.
We're not
They're
calling them
officially
freakers.
called freakers, but we don't like calling them that.
But I like the fact that in the footage we see later, the way they utilize the zombies almost as a puzzle mechanic, that is a thing to me that separates this from the litany of other zombie games we've had.
I'm completely with you on that. The demo last year is pretty much him just running around and mowing down the horde, which is really it's incredible to see that many enemies on screen at once and having them be all a constant threat to you. But at the same time, I was afraid that would be sort of a one-trick pony. In this instance, you've got wolves diving at you, you've got booby traps set up, you've got a look at the open world, and then the fact that you're dealing with humans. The fact that there's these kind of, what are we going to call it? Far Cry-esque, this sort of outpost you're going up on.
Yeah.
But there is that booby trap mentality of I'm going to, cause a ruckus, and then the zombies come in and help me. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Days Gone actually looks like it's doing something a little different with zombies, which is really important in 2017 when we've gone full circle with exhaustion and then back again.
Yeah.
I loved the bear at the end.
Yes.
I thought I'm sorry to spoil that before the demo is over, but I loved the bear. I think that the fact that there is a variety of enemies that you're going up against, that the environment might be hostile, that's really exciting.
Yeah, and the fact that those variety of enemies exist in the same spaces, whereas in The Last of Us, which are a lot of comparisons to, you had the cordyceps and you had some of the humans, whereas with this, they're all in the same environment, so the idea of pitting them against each other, like Clint Eastwood and A Fistful of Dollars, seems cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, it seems really cool to me.
Yeah, it seems like last year with the reveal of Days Gone, it was just last year, right?
Yeah.
1 year ago.
They were sort of like revealing their impressive technology for getting all these fast-moving swarms of zombies on screen. But like you, I was maybe a little disappointed with what I saw, or wasn't super excited about it. But here, I'm getting much more excited, starting to see a little bit more about how you can use these roving hordes of zombies, which apparently are just, I don't know if it's randomized, because he walks over to a cliff. There's been no loading screen, and there's just this swarm of zombies sort of shambling about there, and he's able to use them against the outpost.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, the games all feel different, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of these demos I look at and I'm like, all right, the camera is usually about that far behind a character in a very pretty environment.
And there's a lot of grass to hide
Yeah.
in. It's like Days Gone is like the quintessential looking Sony game.
Yes, which isn't a bad thing, because
No.
Horizon and Uncharted and God of War all look great, but I don't know, it's sort of a recurring trend, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, honestly, I'm pretty burnt out on zombie stuff too. It looks like this is doing some really interesting things mechanically, but tonally, stylistically, I'm completely uninterested. Technically, I'm very interested, because clearly they've been doing their homework. You can look at this and go, oh, that's what Ben was doing
Since Uncharted
years or whatever. Yeah.
And again, it's hard to tell when we get to this encounter here, like how dynamic this is. It reminded me a little bit when we first saw Horizon, and you saw that demo of Aloy setting up the traps along the different robo-dinos, and I was looking at it like, how much of this is scripted, how much of this is improv, and so I want to see if, an encounter like this, the way I do it is different than the way all of you do it, and then we come to work the next day and talk about it.
Well, I love that they also set this up really quickly, because they were like, oh, you can throw a rock to distract an enemy and use a trap. And I was like, okay,
that's every
I've been
game.
playing video games for the last 5 years. Clearly, I've witnessed some of that. But then you've got this horde of zombies, and it was kind of like, oh, no, that's the part they're showing off.
Yep.
The guy screaming about his leg at a trap is attracting them.
Yeah, this is the part that really sold it for me. There's been no loading. Like, what?
It's impressive.
These roving hordes
right?
of zombies, are they just randomly scattered around, always moving on their own?
Yeah,
That's what I wanna know.
I think we have them on the live show later this week. One of you, whoever's hosting that segment, needs to ask.
Yeah, I got some questions.
I really hope that it's like Horizon, where they have a kind of pack mentality of their own that's programmed, and you never really know where they're going to be.
Yeah, you sort of have to learn the ecosystem and see something in a distance and be like, oh, you think like this, so I need to interact with you like this.
Yeah, so far I think the only types of quote-unquote freakers we've seen there's the Horde, which we've seen plenty of, and then there's ones called Newts, which are like the little baby one you saw at the beginning of last year's demo, which are basically like, they're scouts, they will alert the Horde, and then there's the bear. So clearly there's more of those things. Also, like, this is the E3 of the zombie bear, apparently, because Microsoft had Metro Exodus with a different zombie bear.
That's wonderful. Well, finally we've ended the console wars.
Yeah. We all found peace over zombie bears, and it's great.
We still don't know much about who we are.
So I think you're Deacon St. James. Here's something that really bugs me.
That sounds like
and
a
I'm gonna ask
pornography
this. I might have the name wrong,
That
but
is
it's Deacon something.
a porn.
He's a bounty hunter in a world where things will just kill you constantly, which seems sort of like a waste of money.
And I feel like in a world where currency doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what they pay him with. I guess it's bartering stuff. But they're like, yeah, this guy really ripped me off. Go kill him. And you're like, well, he might just be dead already. You know?
I felt like this was my aha moment with the game.
Yeah,
When I saw
me
this
too.
happen, I'm like, if this is a system in the game, and this is something I could do sort of on a predictable basis, that excites me.
And I love the animations. I love the fact that they move as a horde, yet you can see every single one is an individual and running as an individual.
Now, the most weird, baffling thing about this, if you go back and watch the demo from last year, on your mini-map, which they had, I don't think they had that in this year's demo. I wasn't paying too much attention there, but the horde is represented as just kind of a line of red dots, as opposed to regular enemies, which are like, each one is a dot. So it's kind of hard to gauge exactly which one is.
It'd be interesting to see if you can pick individuals out from that horde or lure them out in some way.
So one thing we didn't get was an 8.
I was just going to ask about that. I didn't catch whether or not they
didn't
released.
even
No, like, window or anything?
Get a year. I don't think a year popped up.
Wow, that's interesting.
Which is crazy, because I would have thought, this was one of the earliest games.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
they
since
showed
we
last
got
year.
a long gameplay demo last year, you would think it would be out before Spider-Man.
Yeah, but it didn't even have a 2018. There's no way this is a 2019 game, obviously.
Could be. It's pretty ambitious.
I don't know. We'll wait and see. Maybe they'll just there'll be a press release in an hour that says, it's out in 2 months.
That'd be anticlimactic.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, but right after that, we'll be back with more about the Sony press conference right after this. Welcome back to IGN Live at E3. This is the Sony press conference post-show. There is too much to talk about. Now we're going to talk about Shadow of the Colossus. We want to talk left field surprises. We are getting a remake of Shadow of the Colossus. The IGN newsroom erupted during that trailer.
I love that. I love that so much. When something just really, like, none of us, like, you know, it's like, oh, these guys know things. It's under wraps. You get all the leaks. No, we had no idea. And everyone exploded. People were crying and clapping. So,
I mean, it was, this was right alongside Beyond Good and Evil as the loudest this room got of the show so far, and I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Shadow of the Colossus is a game that still looks beautiful, but hasn't really technically aged very well. So I'm very interested to see what they're going to do with tweaking the gameplay to make it a little bit less clumsy, a little bit more accessible.
Well, and the game has, it had performance issues. Like, even on the PS3 remastered version, it had frame rate hiccups because this game was so stupidly ambitious for a PlayStation 2 game.
Yeah.
And the fact that you see these things, like, we were squealing when we saw these because these scope
it looks so
and grandeur.
cool, right?
It's still right there.
It looks terrifying at this point.
do we know if this is Team Ico doing this?
It's not Team Ico. I believe it was Blue Point who did the HD remasters, and they're known as like one of the best HD remaster houses. So they do like touch-ups, but now they're just taking the reins on a full from the ground up.
That's fantastic because you know, Shadow of the Colossus is a wonderful game, but yeah, like you said, it's marred by technical issues.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's not what they were trying to do. It's not what the game design. It's the controls and the frame rate.
Yeah, it's a reason that I haven't really been able to go back to it. So I'm really looking forward to tackling it in a sort of more with a modern brush.
Yeah, totally. And you know, last year obviously we finally got at the end of the year The Last Guardian after several delays and everything. We finally got it in December, and I reviewed it. I think it had some of the finest things I've ever seen in the game, but I think ultimately the package was disappointing.
Yeah.
Whereas when I go back and think of Shadow of the Colossus, it is the technical problems are the only flaws I can level against the game. And in 2018, when the game comes out, you can fix all of those.
Yeah. I'm really excited to return to the world again. I got full body chills.
Seriously.
I mean, the scale of these creatures is still so spectacular, and they're still so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And the game it balances sort of fear with this melancholy feeling when you do down a Colossus.
Yeah.
Like, what am I
Well,
doing?
you're killing something beautiful.
And this thing was just standing there. And then obviously Argo the horse is incredible. Like, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played it, but it's an incredible journey.
I mean, there were shots in there that were reminiscent of seeing the Final Fantasy VII remake stuff, where you just got the same level of like just that jolt of like, this looks so incredible and beautiful. But looking at this, you're like, oh no, that's gameplay.
Yes,
And
or
that's why I
something
went,
close
like,
to it.
why is Final Fantasy VII taking so long to remake? When it's a much older game than Shadow of the Colossus.
Maybe they should have just given it to Blue Point.
Yes.
I mean, Blue Point, they're like closers. It's ABC,
Apparently,
right? Yeah, I feel like Final Fantasy VII is trying to do something more ambitious by making it episodic. Also, the PS1 game transitioning into a PS, let's be real, 5 game is going to be something very different from this, which was like...
Yeah, well, I mean, like we were saying, it's totally unfair to compare the two because Final Fantasy VII, if you've gone back and replayed, it had pre-rendered backgrounds. Like, it mechanically, it asks you, are you sure? After every menu choice you make, like, there are things in there mechanically that need to get gutted. And in this case, no, it just, an update works. It makes sense.
Yeah, Shadow of the Colossus does only a handful of things, but it does that handful of things really well.
Yes, I love that. It's got cool salamanders, too.
Yeah.
Very cool salamanders.
Isn't it true that even in the original game, there were more planned Colossi that didn't make?
There were more planned Colossi, and there was a multiplayer mode / spinoff called Nico that never happened.
No, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen,
I
actually.
just wonder if they could maybe resurrect.
If there was a 17th
DLC hadn't been invented yet.
That's true.
That's true. Man, if there was a 17th Colossi, I'd lose it.
Yeah. Is this one of your favorite announcements of E3 2017?
Yes, that's right up there with Beyond Good and Evil as things that I wouldn't have expected, but things I would ultimately eat porcelain for.
What was most exciting about both of them is that immediately everyone knew what the games were within seconds.
Yeah.
That was what, like Shadow of the Colossus, just that glimpse of that environment, and everyone erupted.
I saw horse legs. I was like, oh, I know those horse legs.
I know those legs.
Yeah.
No, that was really funny because like after last year and the year before, we were kind of like, you saw us in the pre-show. We were like, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to do some release dates? Are there surprises? But there we go.
Yeah, this to me was this year's version of what we mentioned before with Death Stranding and Spider-Man and Final Fantasy VII Remake and Shenmue. But they were like 2018, and I look at it, I'm like, yeah, you're 2018. You look like something that's coming out in 2018.
Yeah, that was a really exciting announcement. We just found out this morning that Sony had trademarked Shadow of the Colossus, and I'm very happy.
I thought it was going to be like a PS2 classic.
Yeah, PS2 Classic is available now.
Yeah.
It's this month's PS Plus game.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
All right, fans of Horizon Zero Dawn should be happy because there is DLC coming this year, The Frozen Wilds, and I actually need you guys to tell me about this because I was getting a taco when this part came on.
Well, good news for you, the sound was busted, so we have no idea what this is about.
Sony had problems with their stream. The sound was a little bit busted, but we see this, and it seems like a very different environment from the. I guess I don't want to spoil where Horizon takes place, but it seems different from where the core Horizon game takes place. And, Horizon itself was such an amazing game. Like we said, one of our favorite games of the year so far, and I'm totally down for more.
Do you think that they heard us when we were like, oh yeah, God of War last year looked a lot like Horizon, and they were like, oh yeah, well check this out. Hold my beer,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because there's even a two-way conversation because there was a girl that Kratos comes upon in the God of War demo, and I'm like, you look a lot like Aloy.
Yeah.
This looks really cool. I mean, honestly, for me, for a Horizon expansion that I would enjoy, they need to dig a little bit deeper into the story, which I think they scratched the surface of in terms of like the interesting meta-narrative and what was going on in the world past, and introduce some new dino types.
Yeah, I would like to see some new dino types. For me, any return to Horizon Zero Dawn is welcome. But yes, I had hunted them all by the time I finished the game, and I want more because there is so much opportunity to have more in that world.
I mean, that's what I feel like when we finished Horizon, they're like, what do you do for Horizon 2? We were all like, I want things that fly, and I want things that go underwater.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're getting either of them in this, but I feel like this is a really interesting, half step towards. We were talking before about Uncharted: The Lost Legacy and the Dishonored standalone expansion as these adventures.
Is it
That's what I
standalone
want
or
to
is
ask.
it?
Is this DLC or is it another standalone
We
pack?
didn't get confirmation, but whereas Uncharted and Dishonored are definitely standalone. You do not need the original games. I get the feeling that this is DLC, especially because I feel like you're going to continue your Aloy character that is leveled up to whatever she is at the end of Horizon.
So more like Rise of the Tomb Raider style DLC.
The Baba Yaga.
Yeah, than these standalone things that we've been seeing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that seems to check out. I hope that if they're going to be doing this, that they kind of squish the story together a little bit. Because I think that people have not exhausted the open world aspect of it, but maybe save some of that energy for the next game.
Yeah.
Having something, I mean, I'm thinking like, was it Infamous Last Light?
First Light.
First Light. Sorry, a lot of words to get
A lot of
reused.
lights.
But yeah, like that seemed more kind of like, here's just kind of squishing it together, making it more of like it's less about running around the open world and more like, let's check out this story.
It's also interesting, this is a weird sort of inside baseball-y thing, but Sony's always had these really interesting first-party studios, so when you see a Naughty Dog logo, you get excited. When you see a Sucker Punch logo, you get excited. Up until very recently, when I saw a Guerrilla logo, I was like, Killzone, that's fine.
I know.
Like, Killzone's totally fine.
I love that they've sort of reinvented themselves.
Yeah, the second I saw that Guerrilla logo come up, I was like, all right, I'm on board. I don't care if it's DLC, I'm totally here.
Exactly. That is definitely one of the most pleasant surprises of the year. And because I reviewed it, when I was reviewing it, I was like, this is really good. Am I the only one that thinks this? Turns out no.
Yeah,
but,
you had to do a quick sanity check. You're like, no, everyone loves this story.
It's also awesome because in the way that we were talking about, like, Sony's release schedule has changed a lot, and things that used to come out in the fall, now they come out in the springtime. And you're like, oh, games are for everybody. And it's a nice little kind of booster shot to be like, hey, if you haven't played Horizon, people are still talking about Horizon. Maybe you want to go back and finish your game or play more stuff or kill that hippopotamus made out of cell phones. Whatever it is you're doing. Now there's more to go into.
Yeah, and in, so far everything we've talked about had a 2018 at the end of it. This had a 2017.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I imagine we're getting this in the fall. There'll probably be the Game of the Year edition and all that bundled in, which I think is super cool. Yeah.
All right, we also got to see a little more of Destiny 2, which promises to have more Sony exclusive content. I know at least one person that was really excited here in the IGN War Room.
I feel like I heard, it was either Fran or Destin or some sort of hybrid of Fran Destin. Squeal and delight.
Yeah,
there was like a guttural howl.
Yeah, I like how do you again? Full disclosure, we're not the biggest Destiny fans in the office. We just don't play it. I'm excited for Destiny 2. I think what they've shown is cool.
We can all safely say that we're excited for Destiny 2, but yes, certainly not in an expert sense.
I think this trailer gives us a better look at the new villain, or the best look we've had so far.
Yeah, which we got a little bit of a couple weeks ago at the big reveal.
Yeah,
it seems like this
it was
big
one of
daddy.
those moments where it cuts off right as the villain emerges.
Yeah,
Here
yeah.
you get a really nice
And he
long
seems
look
like
at him.
I think you described him as a Warhammer man.
Yeah, he looks like a pretty sweet like Blood Angel or just a
Yeah.
Space Marauder. I don't play
Buddy.
Warhammer either.
Yeah, I'm kind of
so.
surprised we didn't get more gameplay. I guess we got a lot of gameplay
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
big reveal
Yeah.
event back in May, but this was just a very quick trailer, and then like, hey, come back, we got exclusive everything for you.
It's super smart to put it in this conference, though, because obviously Destiny had that full reveal of like, here's the gameplay, and all the fans who stuck around through vanilla Destiny and played all the, Rising Iron, Taken King,
yeah.
Vault of Shadows, or whatever.
you got it all.
And then this is for anybody who slept on it, and they're like, oh hey, Destiny's got a story now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's got like dudes in roided out stormtrooper armor kicking people off of bridges and stuff. So
And also, I think Destiny 2 is such a mega hyped game. There are so many people really excited for it. I think that even if Sony has an exclusive map pack or
Yeah.
costume, I mean, like anything, like it's.
Fran's dying somewhere.
I know. He's suffering. I apologize, Fran. But I think it's very smart of them to show it off.
I
at
feel
the
like
conference.
Someone who can shed some light on all this for us is Destin Legary, and he's standing by.
Sorry, Destin.
Sorry,
Hey, guys.
Destin.
Destin, what did you think of the Destiny 2 trailer?
Well, they did one thing that was really smart, and they focused on story. They focused on Gaul, the new villain, who's destroyed the tower, destroyed all your goodies in the vault, and they showed us a little bit more about how that experience is going to be. People are really, really excited about that part.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of the big Destiny guys in the office. Are you happy with what you saw today?
I was not happy about those PlayStation exclusives, and I actually put a call out to Twitter. And not only are PC and Xbox fans unhappy, but so are some PlayStation fans. Here's a few tweets from KN. Sucks Xbox players paying full price for a game that has blocked content for a whole year. Leon's Pro says, I'm okay with it, but all the exotics, that just annoys me. And it kind of goes on like that. There's many, many tweets from gamers who aren't loving the PlayStation exclusive content this time around.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like one of the big games of the fall that is totally taking a marketing side. Like, we get a little bit with Call of Duty, but the Call of Duty that we saw here didn't really do that. So, I mean, Destin, like, where are you going to play Destiny 2 when it launches in September?
I'm eyeing the PC. It's going to be 4K 60. It's going to run at that smooth 60 frames. Obviously, my save is on the PlayStation, but with the character not transferring over, I don't know if I'm going to stick with that platform. And there's some enticing experiences on Xbox One X, the PC, and PlayStation 4 Pro. It's just going to be tricky to stay there.
So in your opinion, the exclusives that they revealed tonight are significant enough for people to be upset about?
Yeah, I mean, based just on my own Twitter feed, I got about 1,000 responses. Well, not literally 1,000, but a lot of responses, and all pretty negative about the exclusives and not supportive of it.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe that backfired for Sony then. I imagine we'll be hearing more about your Destiny 2 impressions on Fireteam Chat later this week here on IGN Live. Is that
Definitely.
correct?
Tuesday night, we're going to be recording, and that will be airing shortly after. We're going to have some of the developers on, and we will ask them more about the exclusive content and everything else we can expect from Destiny 2.
Great. Thanks a lot, Destin.
Thanks, David.
All right, now one game we wanted to see tonight, but we did not, was The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
I mean, we were right.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
what
bummed,
can we
but
say?
we were right. Like a week ago on Beyond on our prediction episode, Max, I said 2 games I don't think we were going to see were Death Stranding, and I didn't think we were going to see Last of Us Part 2.
Right.
Yeah.
The next morning, Kojima said, I'll be at E3, but Death Stranding won't. And then, we saw it here, and it wasn't there. Which,
No, I think that Sony would be shooting themselves in the foot if they were like, hey, The Last of Us 2, while at the same time they're like, we're doing Uncharted DLC featuring a new character from Naughty Dog, and then meanwhile there's Days Gone, which is a new IP that involves similar kind of post-apocalyptic zombie themes.
True.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I don't really know what else to say.
So I'm going to throw something on the table. I think it was a mistake for them to show that at PSX and not here.
Why
I
is
feel
that?
like The Last of Us 2 would have made such a bigger splash tonight than it did in December, because in December, they showed us Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, and we were like, oh, this looks great. Like, this is Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
This is what Naughty Dog's working on.
That totally makes sense. That would have been kind of like another one to their little hat trick of Shadow of the Colossus, and having that, and then whatever else, all the VR stuff.
I feel like we got such a good. Tonight, Sony did such a good job of showing us gameplay of all the games we were excited about last year. And so the idea of them giving us that one, well, here's a morsel that we'll be giving you in a couple of years.
That would have been actually you're right, having that trailer in this conference would have made this conference mwah.
Yeah.
Just, you know, it was like I loved the Spider-Man ending, but it really did need that sort of oh my god moment. It was lacking that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that just means that the next time we see this, it's probably going to be gameplay. It's probably going to be something in action. It's sort of a known quantity in terms of it being a sequel. But also, they're trying to build up, build up an audience for PSX and be like, hey, why should you go to PSX? Because you can be there with other hardcore fans who will love this. But
yeah, totally.
Yeah, I guess I would say I'm surprised that it wasn't here, just because I was really expecting to see it. But the truth is, by the time the conference ended, I'd totally forgotten that I was expecting it, because I saw so many other games.
Yeah, I feel like it was just we were sitting here before we recorded, and I was like, "No Last of Us, where was that?" No even like brief mention, and honestly, even the Uncharted stuff we saw was really brief. We didn't see a ton of gameplay or anything.
Yeah,
we
they
just
opened
got,
up with
which was cool, and we're seeing it soon.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, it's a very known quantity.
Yeah.
We have the release dates. Everyone's on board because it's Uncharted, so they didn't need to do too much of that.
Yeah, whereas, Spider-Man was a little bit, I'm going to play Spider-Man regardless, but I was like, I wonder what this video game is. With Uncharted and with Last of Us 2, I'm like, yeah, you got me. Dude, you got my money, just take your time.
They've established the brand. So.
Yeah, total trust.
Well, so that leaves the question, when will we see The Last of Us Part 2 gameplay reveal? Is it PSX again?
I really hope it's not. I mean, it might be, but again, next year, if they delivered on gameplay at next year's PlayStation conference, I think that will just be the icing on the cake for that conference. I mean, this is the game that everyone is waiting for. This is the game that I am waiting for. Like, it's very meaningful for a great number of people. So I think hopefully next year's E3 conference.
Yeah, I personally think that the three biggest games of 2019 that we know so far are Last of Us 2, Death Stranding, and Cyberpunk. I think those are going to be the three big games of 2019. So I don't think we're going to hear from any of the three of them.
What about Final Fantasy VII Remake?
That's 2020.
That's 2022.
All right, Capcom delivered an extended trailer of Monster Hunter World, which is coming to PS4. I think this is what Sean Layton was alluding to when he said they had big things from Japanese developers.
Yeah.
Marty was still shouting that it was Bloodborne, though, so...
I was not. I saw the sword that
look,
had
it's
teeth
Bloodborne.
on it.
I'm like, that's not Bloodborne, Marty. And you said, yes, it is.
I don't want to be negative. I don't think this was a good demo.
No, it had a ton of jump cuts, which was very odd. To be like, here's gameplay, and then to kind of truncate that by just switching between little things. It looks like raw B-roll when they send that out. Monster Hunter's always seemed like a really super cool, ambitious game, but it's always been, I feel like, more kind of RPG stats based than like actual action based. This looks like a mix of that and Horizon. Like it's really impressive, but I feel like we're not seeing any HUD, we're not seeing any numbers flying off those Deinonychus heads or anything.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a tough game to demo for those reasons. But I wasn't particularly enthralled, especially like I don't really want to watch a dude like hunt for minerals.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The thing is, we had this outdoor environment that just objectively didn't look as good as the other outdoor environments we saw this year. And the appeal of Monster Hunter isn't this. The appeal of Monster Hunter is doing this with friends. So
that's what I wanted to bring up. I thought it was a big multiplayer game, and here we just see one guy.
Yeah, if they were going to show this game off, they should have done it in the same way, like less cheesy, but in the same way that Ubisoft has done with, they had a couple of YouTubers playing the game, or Sea of Thieves I thought was demoed really well last year at Microsoft. Have a couple people and show what a giant fight like this is like from 4 different points of view.
Yeah, when you've got Horizon Zero Dawn in your stable and games that look as good as Days Gone and Uncharted The Lost Legacy, sort of putting Monster Hunter World in here is kind of doing it a little bit of a disservice.
Yeah, and I think, I think a lot of us were hoping for a From Software something, whether it was Bloodborne or the next Souls-like. And so seeing...
I know I was.
Yeah, I mean, so seeing a third-person game where you have a big weapon and you have to fight a big monster that wasn't that was a little bit disappointing.
That said, the interaction with the environment, and obviously this is an E3 demo, so take it with a grain of salt, but the fact that the monsters are fighting each other, you got this thing going on, it's just, it's I think really impressive in terms of what they're showing, like content-wise. The presentation is just a little bit off, and I don't know if it's fully representative of the actual product we're going to be getting.
Yes. Also, you need to understand that, especially in an American audience, Monster Hunter always seems like a sort of a B-tier franchise. In Japan, especially portable,
this is S-tier.
I mean, it's S-tier. This is Pokemon. This is Dragon Quest. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a play for the Japanese market.
Yeah, honestly, I bet there's a room full of people that aren't us who just flip their lid.
Lost it,
Seriously,
yeah.
IGN Japan.
Yeah.
I do think a lot of the monster designs look cool.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of appeal in that, and running
love
around
dinosaurs.
just seeing
Yeah.
cool dinosaurs. But there are robot dinosaurs in Horizon.
That's true. I
And
need
that
more
game is-
flesh, though. I'm a big flesh guy.
You're a big flesh
Terrible thing
guy?
to say. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
look this way, guys.
Your mug. Just eat your mug.
All right, I think right now we're going to hand over the keys to the conference. Sony just wrapped up their press conference, and it is time to break down the biggest moments. IGN's keys to the conference is presented by the all-new Honda Civic Si. Number one, the Spider-Man reveal.
Yeah.
That's got to be the biggest takeaway from the show tonight.
Yeah, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think the full-on Spider-Man demo at the end, plus the Miles Morales stinger, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we were discussing earlier that we saw so much of the game in that time. Like there was the minute-to-minute action stuff with the combat, and then there were the way more cinematic moments. It was a gift of a demo.
That looked like a video game. That looked like a video game that you could play. It
Yeah.
didn't look like a sizzle reel of proof of concept, early gameplay stuff.
Yeah.
It looked like actual gameplay.
I wonder if it's playable. They do, over at Sony's booth, they've got a big Spider-Man on a helicopter.
Did it really?
Then one would think it would be playable, right?
What's
Okay.
that?
Like you definitely think it would be playable.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing I'm doing as soon as the show floor opens tomorrow morning is I'm trying to play that, and I'm trying to play God of War.
Speaking of God of War, that's probably the second big takeaway from the Sony conference tonight, right? A brand new trailer showed us a lot more of the game.
Yeah, to me, last year it opened up and I was like, this is awesome. Is this a fluke? And then we saw this and I'm like, nope, it's not. God of War looks awesome. I will gladly wait until early 2018.
I have really good feelings about what God of War is doing. It looks fantastic. They showed me a huge range of variety of the stuff that you're going to be doing in the game. Albeit they did kind of scale back the amount of, like I said, how much it looks like an actual video game. It was very cinematic. It kind of jumped around. It was like, I don't know, just a lot of kind of mixed footage. But yeah, really impressive. And it's a beloved Sony franchise that is getting not just a full remake, but like it's moving forward.
It's a reinvention slash evolution.
Yeah, I mean, I love how grounded it is, yet it's also subversive. Like, as I mentioned, that part at the end where the monster is not actually going to attack them, but it wants to help them.
It throws up the axe.
Yeah, it's giving a little sly wink to the series past.
As much as I like the Spider-Man demo, that final moment of the God of War trailer with the serpent might be my favorite moment of the whole conference.
really
good.
That was
Really
just like
cool.
a really
Yeah, in
video game
2005,
aside.
that would be like a Robot Chicken sketch.
Yeah.
Like a boss that doesn't want to fight you, and you're like,
true.
well, all right, thanks for the axe, I guess, whatever.
All right, and the third and final big takeaway from the Sony conference was that the Shadow of Colossus surprise announcement, the remake.
Yeah, if there was like a decibel meter in the war room, that would have been the highest pop of the night.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we were...
Yeah, those were guttural sounds. Those were animal sounds.
And there's so many of us that hold that game in that sort of upper echelon of one of the greatest games ever made, and to see that it's being remade and coming back next year is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. People are going to be like, oh, it's another remake or more fan service from Sony, but no, it's a really good idea, I think.
Yeah, this was a game that needed a remake, and it's getting one.
This is a great way, I mean, it's just a great way to preserve video game history, right?
Yeah.
To, video games deteriorate, it gets harder and harder to play them. Taking up this old game that's a classic, polishing it up and re-releasing it on your current system, making it look as good as it possibly can. I love it.
Yeah, it's been 12 years since Shadow of the Colossus.
2005?
2005.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like bring this to a new generation of PlayStation fans. Absolutely.
Super excited. On board. That is going to do it for our Sony post show, but our coverage continues into the night. We'll take a quick break, but stay with us. IGN Live at E3 will be back right after this.
The biggest video game event of the year is here, and IGN